The bridge groaned, then cracked. And for a moment everything stopped. I watched from the ridge as Dana Wells screamed, scrambling backward in her heels, while the gleaming new HOA footbridge collapsed into my creek like a slow-motion disaster movie. The board had just finished cutting the ribbon. Now, their vanity project was sinking into the mud they swore didn't exist. Freeze frame. Yep, that's me. And you're probably wondering how I ended up sabotaging a $250,000 bridge in broad daylight and still walking away the legal winner. Well, grab a lawn chair because the story starts with land theft, ends in federal court, and has a little structural sabotage sprinkled in the middle. Let's rewind. When I first bought the land, it was peace I was after. Real rural peace, the kind you can taste in the morning fog and feel in the quiet hum of frogs at dusk. My stretch of property sat right outside the city limits, just far enough from the noise and nonsense, but close enough that I could get gas and groceries without a whole expedition. It was 3 acres of untamed charm, a moss-covered creek running the length of the western boundary, old oaks lining the ridge like watchful sentries, and a patch of stubborn prairie grass I swore I'd never mow. I thought I'd finally outrun the HOA madness I dealt with in the suburbs. That illusion lasted exactly 6 weeks. I first met Dana Reynolds on a Thursday afternoon right as I was unloading fence posts from the back of my truck. Blonde, crisp-collared, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She waved like we were already neighbors and marched across the property line without so much as a pause. "Hi there," she called out. "You must be the new owner of Parcel 14B. I'm Dana, HOA president for Maple Hollow Estates, just on the other side of the creek." I nodded politely, already regretting not pretending I was deaf. She smiled the way salespeople do before they upsell you on a warranty you don't need. "We're really excited about the bridge project. This little waterway will be such a charming crossing point for our community path system. Connects the east and west cul-de-sacs beautifully. We'll have construction markers placed by the end of the week. Shouldn't be disruptive, but I wanted to extend the courtesy of letting you know." I blinked. "I'm sorry. What bridge?" Dana's face twitched just slightly. "Oh, it was in the newsletter. The board approved it last month. It'll span right over the creek. A footbridge, of course. Nothing invasive. Improves community access. Raises home values. Very standard." I dropped the post-hole digger mid-sentence. "Dana, that creek's on my property. Every inch of it." Her smile barely faltered. "Oh, I think there's some confusion. Our legal maps show a public access easement running adjacent to the stream." "Adjacent isn't across," I said. "That easement's for utility maintenance. Not a footbridge to parade strangers across my land." She adjusted her sunglasses. "Well, I'm sure it'll all get sorted out. We've already submitted permits to the county." With that, she turned and strutted back across the grass like she hadn't just declared eminent domain on my damn creek. That night, I pulled every piece of paper from the file drawer: deed, title, the old plat map from 1973. No easement, no public access. Nothing but bold black lines making one thing perfectly clear. The creek and a 15-foot buffer on either side belonged to me. The next morning, the markers went up anyway. Bright orange flags stuck in the ground like they were claiming territory for the Queen. I watched from my porch as a survey crew measured the banks, dropped pink paint dots, and took photos. One guy stepped onto my land without a word. "You're trespassing," I called. He waved vaguely and kept snapping pictures. I started filming on my phone, timestamping everything. Day 1 of documentation. It only got worse from there. Within the week, a trailer showed up loaded with rebar, concrete bags, and steel framing. The workers didn't knock. They just marched down the slope and started laying forms. When I confronted the foreman, he muttered something about orders from the board and handed me a printed plan set. "Maple Hollow Connector Bridge Phase 1. Right there on the plan, bold as sin. It showed a concrete span running straight across my creek, anchored on my side by a poured footer buried 2 feet into my bank. I circled the date on the blueprint. Approved 2 weeks before I'd even closed on the property. That explained the smugness and Dana's smile. This had been in motion long before I arrived. Problem was, nobody bothered to check if the land they were building on actually belonged to them. I called the county office, filed a preliminary complaint, and faxed over my plat map with a handwritten note. No permission given. Construction on private property is illegal. Didn't stop them. The bridge footing went in 2 days later. Concrete trucks, wheelbarrows, a generator, even a porta-potty showed up. right in the shade of my oldest oak tree. I had footage of every truck, every intrusion. I started a file on my desktop labeled Exhibit A. I documented every new development like I was building a case because I was. Dana stopped pretending we were friendly. She started sending me cheery HOA bulletins with passive-aggressive lines like, "We appreciate all neighbors who contribute positively to community connectivity." When I emailed back a cease and desist letter drafted by my lawyer friend in Missouri, I got a one-line reply for our legal review. "Your claims lack merit. Construction continues." So, I stopped arguing and got quieter. I started attending HOA meetings, not in person, but through a back door. See, while I couldn't vote, I had a friend who could. A guy named Nate, who owned the lot on the other side of the creek, just one corner touching the HOA's edge. He agreed to attend meetings in my name. Nate started recording the board sessions, and boy, did that pay off. Dana was recorded stating that Mr. Ellis has been difficult, but we've chosen to proceed under quiet title assumptions. Quiet title, my ass. They were gambling that I didn't have the time or resources to fight them. What they didn't realize is that I've got a stubborn streak a mile wide and nothing but time when I'm pissed. I visited the assessor's office twice. I dug up the original land surveys. I found discrepancies between the developer's 2006 site plan and the actual topography. I found out the so-called easement they referenced was revoked in 1984 after a failed utility expansion. They were building a bridge on Fantasy. Meanwhile, every week I walked the site and took pictures. One by one, I logged every change. Rebar placement, beam deliveries, poured deck forms, even the cheap sealant they used on the footers. I knew how long it would last. I wasn't just planning to stop them. I was planning to time it perfectly. I didn't want the bridge stopped. I wanted it built, and I wanted it built badly. Because only then could I prove it was built illegally, unsafely, and without the landowner's consent. I wasn't just going to fight them. I was going to bury them with their own ambition. And it all started with a quiet creek, a smug HOA president, and a bridge no one had permission to cross. The bridge groaned, then cracked. And for a moment, everything stopped. I watched from the ridge as Dana Wells screamed, scrambling backward in her heels, while the gleaming new HOA-foot bridge collapsed into my creek like a slow-motion disaster movie. The board had just finished cutting the ribbon. Now, their vanity project was sinking into the mud they swore didn't exist. Freeze frame. Yep, that's me. And you're probably wondering how I ended up sabotaging a $250,000 bridge in broad daylight and still walking away the legal winner. Well, grab a lawn chair because the story starts with land theft, ends in federal court, and has a little structural sabotage sprinkled in the middle. Let's rewind. When I first bought the land, it was peace I was after. Real rural peace, the kind you can taste in the morning fog and feel in the quiet hum of frogs at dusk. My stretch of property sat right outside the city limits, just far enough from the noise and nonsense, but close enough that I could get gas and groceries without a whole expedition. It was 3 acres